Hey everybody. So I just wanted to go ahead and talk about something for a little bit here. I was looking at my projections for like the next era and getting Pirate King Hondo Naka, and I saw something that made me kind of want to talk about signal data and why it's really the one true bottleneck in this game. Now, some of you are going to be like, yeah, duh, obviously, I know that already, but others are probably going to feel an urge to kind of push back on this, and they'll probably be thinking something like, but I have so much signal data and I need relic mats right now. And sure, that might be the case right now. We've all been there. We all needed a little more Electrium conductors or some more Zinbittle data cards, and we'd already farmed the signal data for what relic level we're going for, right? But the thing is, later on, it's gonna be when you feel that pain of not having bought that signal data earlier that you're really gonna wish you had, right? So people are often in this habit of hurrying up to wait, right? I don't know, maybe you've seen several examples in your lifetime, like it might be somebody in your family or your significant other when they want to go out and they're just like, we gotta hurry up, and then you get there and then the movie doesn't start for 30 more minutes, right? Something like that. Or maybe you're at a red light and there's another car at the red light. As soon as that thing turns green, the guy next to you just guns it, pedal to the metal, and he races off. And then 5 seconds later, you're sitting at another red light and the guy's sitting there right next to you, right? So wasting all that gas for no real reason because he's getting nowhere fast, right? So those are just a couple examples that you might encounter kind of in your everyday life, but maybe a couple of examples that are more relevant to the game, right, is when you start seeing people rush for, 7-starring something that they don't really need to 7-star immediately, right? So we have these current trajectories that always happen. You got a character, it comes out, they got the marquee event, then a month later it goes to shipments and you start seeing it in here. And then a month after that, it goes to a farm node, and then you can start farming it, right? And usually people want these characters relicked up or, 7 stars for a journey guide event that's coming. Say they missed the first one and they're waiting on the second one, and, it's going to come back in about 3 months. But meanwhile, there's a certain group of people, they don't really like waiting on things and they like getting things out of the way, peace of mind, But you'll see them kind of start 7-starring things like just a couple weeks after it goes farmable because they're hitting double, triple refreshes. And oftentimes these are the characters that are going to, you don't have to rush those. Those are going to be coming first. If you farm everything at the same rate, you're going to get the first marquee of an era well before you're going to get the 6th marquee of an era. But people will start farming that thing very quickly using multiple refreshes, rather than kind of timing out the farm. Okay, when is this first marquee gonna hit 7 stars? And when is this 6th marquee gonna hit 7 stars? Because I can't use the first one without the 6th one. Or something to that effect, right? So like, for instance, Pirate King Hondo Naka's coming in like maybe early September is what we're looking at. So for the people that wailed and they're marqueing everything, that's a different story, right? They have to have everything up by that time. And oftentimes people had to 7-star with the marquee event. That's one thing, right? But then we have the people that are getting it afterward, right? The people like me that are going to be farming all the characters the long way, and we're going to be getting Pirate King Hondo Naka sometime after all the marquees have gone farmable, right? But what you'll see is that people will be double refreshing a Thano to make sure they have them at 7 stars, and then they'll sit there and they won't be farming him for a couple more months while they get kicks. Then a couple more months after that, or maybe a month or so, however fast they do, when we get Captain Silvo finally going farmable, and then they're racing against him. But when in reality they could have saved so many resources by just long farming a Thano, and they wouldn't have had to spend anything extra, and he would be there by the time Brutus and Silvo are getting 7-starred, right? So that's just kind of an example of something where we see people often in this game hurry up to wait. And the reason why I bring all those examples up is because it's kind of the same thing when we're talking about signal data. When people will ignore signal data, they won't use crystals to refresh signal data, like cantina energy, and then they spend that crystals in other places, like making sure that they get more chirotechs, or making sure that they, can get electrium conductors, spending resources in that manner, right? Or maybe in where it goes into conquest, they'll be like, I need a character in 3 months. I have to get red crate every time, and then I have to spend all my conquest credits to get the 20 shards each time, so that I can get the character on day 1, even though I won't have the signal data to be able to get that character to a relevant relic level, right? When in actuality, they could have got the conquest character in 4, 5, 6 months and spent some of that conquest credits on signal data in the Jawas, right? So it's kind of related. When you're avoiding spending on the thing that you're going to need long term to get that short term gratification, that short term item that you think you need right now. But if you actually kind of do the analysis, you'll often find that a lot of these characters you don't need right away. Like, think about how many Relic 9 Jocasta knew right out the gate, when we didn't even know for sure that she was going to be in the raid. We for sure didn't know that she was going to be, a Jedi Master Mace Windu requirement, those kind of things, right? So it's just, and I mean, I think ultimately, like, Jocasta Nu wasn't a requirement. I don't think so. Let me go check real quick. Not that it matters too much, but because a lot of people are going to need her with, you want Jocasta Nu with Jedi Master Mace Windu. But the point is, people were Relic 9ing her out the gate just on the assumption that she was going to be needed. Now, she wasn't a requirement. So, and that kind of mentality is often what leads us to regret our purchase decisions, or be longing for something that we had plenty of later on, right? So that's like kind of the big overarching story regarding signal data, and kind of why it's so important to kind of not just hurry up to get something you think you need now at the cost of something you will definitely need later. But what I want to do also is kind of look at why signal data is such a particularly hard bottleneck for a lot of us to deal with. And I understand you might not be experiencing it now, but trust and believe you will be later, because everybody is going to get to some semblance of an end game point, right? They're all going to be eventually acquiring more resources, and things are going to be less valuable over time. A lot of people probably have moved on from needing core gear. That's an example, right? It always comes down to that eventually. I mean, way back when, a bottleneck that we used to have was sim tickets. We didn't have enough sim tickets to do all our daily battles, so it made this game a huge drain. But, all these years later, and eventually we have perpetually infinite sim tickets, right? But leave a comment down below if you know what it was like to be wanting sim tickets because you just didn't want to have to play the game the manual way, and you're like, why am I running out of sim tickets, right? Or credits is another example. People in the early game will often be missing credits, and probably the large majority of you realize now that it would be an absolute crime to see people paying crystals for credits in order to kind of expedite their characters, because they need to level up, right? They need credits, and that would just be, hard to watch. It hurt my heart to see somebody do that, but that is a thing that happens ultimately, right? So the reason why signal data is such a hard thing to get, and why people kind of, they look over why it's so hard to get, is because a lot of people don't convert gear properly. A lot of people aren't thinking about it. A lot of people just think, okay, well, I have a TB reward, and TB rewards, if you go to the crates, where's the rewards here? Where can I look at the rewards? Come on. Enter. So rewards. And then we look at these crates, and then they include impulse detectors, and they include, Zinbiddles and electrium conductors. People look at that, and that's where I get my source of impulse detectors and stuff. But the thing is, a lot of this stuff that we get in the game in different currencies, right? They convert over to the things that we need. If we want gear to keypads, we buy these, and we convert, suddenly we're converting get to into gear to keypads, even though we can't normally buy that. So that's one more source of gear to keypads. Sometimes they show up here and we can spend get 3 directly, right? But that's not always the case. Get 1, you can't buy electrium conductors, but you can sure buy the gear to transfer that into electrium conductors. When we look at the guild activity store, We can convert certain things. We can buy them outright for get 3, or we can convert gear into those things that we need, right? And then to some extent, you know, we can't exactly convert this gear in there, but you know, that's kind of the point, right? Is that, and if you really want to, you can convert some of this gear into like the lower gear mats or the lower relic mats, but you on average won't do that, right? But just look how many currencies that we can kind of convert. If we really want to, we can convert episode currency into more relic mats, or we can buy them directly, right? Shard shop, we can spend shard shop currency to go ahead and convert gear into relic mats. So the sources to get these relic mats, like even though they might seem scarce, or you might seem like you're running dry on them, right? It's not really the case at the end of the day, right? Because like I have 66, or do I have, you know, even more at my disposal if I just want to convert all this, right? And I don't recommend you just always converting gear. That's not really the point of this. The thing is just that scarcity wise, you're not really short on gear to keypads, because you can always transfer gear into that. You can always transfer currencies into gear into that resource. The exception being like arrow magnifiers and droid brains. Arrow magnifiers you can buy, but droid brains you really can't, right? But based on how people respond to my droid brain videos and takes, people don't think that's really a bottleneck. And for sure, it's a much less bottleneck than something like signal data, absolutely. And for a lot of the game, a lot of the PL players, they're not doing Relic 9, right? So that makes sense that droid brains aren't going to be that much of an issue, right? But when we look at, you know, the cost between droid brains and signal data, right? Let's go ahead and switch over to a handy dandy little spreadsheet, right? If you need a Relic 9 character, you're going to need 20 droid brains. And if you wanted to buy 20 droid brains directly for crystals, because you couldn't farm them or you didn't have enough of them someday, then it would cost you 6,000 crystals. You know, 1,500 for a pack of 5 times 4 equals 6,000 crystals. But if you want to take a character from Relic 2, right, to Relic 9, it's going to cost you a whole lot more, right? So it's going to cost you, oh, this spreadsheet is looking wonky. Hold on one second. Let me get this a little bit more lined up there. We'll just spread it out like that. And let me bring up the bottom here. Sorry about this. So you can see this handy dandy little sum at the bottom here. Okay, so when we look at how much crystals in signal data you'll need, right? It takes 11,700 crystals worth of signal data. So if you're short on signal data, you're gonna have to spend a lot more to Relic 9 a character than you would droid brains. And similarly, the same is true for something like Electrium conductors or Zinbittle data cards, right? It's going to be more expensive in terms of crystals than it's going to be to get Electrium conductors from one of the stores or convert some X amount of gear or something like that, right? So looking back to the game, the reason why I kind of zeroed in on this, right? There's only one place to get signal data, really, and that's from your cantina farms. Right, everybody knows that this is where you get signal data. You get it from cantina refreshes because CG knows what they're doing, and this refresh is slower than everything, right? The other places that you can pick them up are conquests, but that's very limited quantity, and you have to sacrifice new characters, which some people might not want to do. They might not want to delay new characters for that. But also you can get it from things like assault battles. But again, it's only a couple pieces here and there, right? So it's very limited quantity, and there's no way for us to go and take all these currencies and convert them into signal data. So that's why signal data ends up being more scarce overall. And where this really kind of impacts me, where I really kind of notice this deficiency, is when I look at my farms. You know, when I'm looking at what I'm gearing up to relic up, or say Pirate King Hondo, or for the next era, right? Or something from territory battle if I need a requirement there. So I'm gonna kind of end this video just taking a look at what an in-game player might be looking to relic up and kind of how that farm kind of goes for somebody like me in my position, right? So let's go back over here and we're gonna go to SWGOH events gear, which tracks your gear, especially if it's connected with hot utils. If you don't have hot utils, you can kind of input the values and keep track of it yourself, but it's a free tool to use. Okay, so when we're looking at what I'm gearing up right now, these are the Pirate King Hondo requirements, right? Got some more pirates here. Brutus just came out. I'm probably going to need Maz Kanata and SM3 to use with those teams. So right now I'll have them at Relic 5, and Relic 7 will probably come later if they're good there, or if I find a use for them there. And then we have a couple of oddities you'll see: Scarab, Rebel Pathfinder, Hoth Rebel Soldier, Imagundi, Jedi Consular, Jedi Guardian, IG-86. I am not planning on R9 these characters. Don't worry, don't have a panic attack. These are just placeholders in case I want to R9 the next era after Pirates. Okay, whatever that is, I hope it's something I enjoy, something I really am enthusiastic about in this game. But assuming it is, and assuming there's a couple air battles that can justify the cost, much like Order 66 did, not so much Pirates, but assuming there's something really big that I would like to have and I want to Relic 9 everything for the next era, I'm making sure that I have the gear and the signal data and the relics to go ahead and do that, right? So that's what these are representing. I'm not actually Relic 9ing these characters. But so with all of this being said, all of these characters in mind, all of these relic levels in mind, let's take a look at what I need to go ahead and complete that plan, right? So I need 264 more Electrium conductors, 217 Zin-Biddles, 91 impulse detectors, 16 arrow magnifiers, because I've been buying arrow magnifiers with all my MK3 currency, and 94 geared keypads, 46 droid brains. Then we get to the signal data, right? So the way we kind of use this, the way I think about this is that, okay, Pirate King Hondo's coming out next month. I'm not gonna have him. I'm not gonna have him until the last marquee, which is Captain Silvo, is farmed by, say, 2 refreshes. I'm probably not gonna do more than 2 refreshes. So realistically, 2 months after Captain Silvo comes out, which comes out in a month, it's going to be about 3 months before I can get Pirate King Hondo. So I need all of this stuff within the next 3 months, essentially. And maybe later, honestly, because, well, depending on how those next era are scattered, right, or staggered, I'm only going to need 1 Relic 9 every 2 weeks. So I have a little bit more time to farm them even than that, because Pirates are going to come first before this next era really comes. So looking at that, right, I need a lot of relic mets that are going to come in, and if I'm calculating that and keeping track of that, I should have those by the time I have the signal data ready, right? This is a pretty good estimate. It will be a little bit shorter because this tool doesn't take into account how many signal data I'm getting from Conquest, the air battles, the assault battles, things like that, right? So it doesn't take that into account, and it doesn't take into what I actually necessarily am going to pull. I might get lucky, might be a little unlucky, but this is a rough estimate based on spending 3 refreshes per day. So it's going to take me about 20 plus 11 is 31 plus 7 is 38 days. And I add another day just in case I'm unlucky. So about 41 days it's going to take me to farm the signal data. I think I can get all of this in 41 days, right? That's not going to be too much trouble based on getting resources from the raid, and we're about to do max raid crate next time, so this will be a little bit easier than that, right? And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, we're not maxing raid crate, or we're not getting the second to last box. So relic mats are harder to get because we're not getting that. The thing is, MK2 can be converted into all of this except arrow magnifiers, right? So you are getting the same amount of MK2 that I'm getting from the raid, regardless of your box for the most part, because MK1 and MK2 are the same rate, right? And all of this I don't necessarily buy with MK3. I only buy, you know, like right now I'm only buying the arrow magnifiers, and I'll buy the impulse detectors probably. But all that being said is that relic mats are still not the bottleneck here. I'm waiting on signal data, and just to demonstrate, and gear also is down here, it's definitely not the bottleneck. Because, you know, if we go over to the game real quick, you know, hold on, what was that? I needed 40 of something. I need 40 of these MK10 neurosav things, right? So we go over to the game. Let's go see if they're in the guild activity shipments. They probably will have something. Okay, here's 10. Can I buy a 40 pack? Oh, look at that, a 40 pack. Wipe that out. And I think I needed MK5 furnaces. Go ahead and buy that. And I don't really need to buy this because the game gives us a lot of core gear, right? This gear will naturally come in, and as we discussed earlier, I don't need it for 4 months or 3 months or whatever, right? So that's just an example. But, you know, looking at all of those relic materials that I needed, right? It looks like I need quite a bit, and it's going to be kind of close based on the signal data. Let me demonstrate why it's not close at all. This is just tracking the actual pieces that we have, not how much we have in terms of gear. And all the gear I've been buying is towards that end. I've been buying things for Zinbiddles because I know I'm going to need Zinbiddles, right? So looking at Electrium conductors, let's just go ahead and add all this up. I already have all the characters to where I, like, gear-wise done for the most part, except Brutus, who isn't out yet. So that would be 79. We add in this would be 144. This would be 210, you know, so on and so forth. And then when we add in the single pieces, because I can't craft because I don't have enough purples, yeah, we have plenty in the bank, as it were, right? So we need what? How many Electrium conductors? I need 264 Electrium conductors. Well, I have more in the bank. I'm not going to cash it in right now because I'm probably going to get plenty more Electrium conductors before I actually need them. And there would be no reason to translate the gear into it, right? Let's look at Zinbiddles. Okay, I need 217 Zinbiddles. 217 Zinbiddles. We go over here. How much do I have stored? Let's take a look. 91 there, 170 there, 219 there. So I have enough Zinbiddles stored, and I'm going to be getting them naturally from events like territory battles, and I'm going to be getting more currencies from the raid. So this is not going to be an issue long term. I might not even have to spend nearly as much of the salvage, and I can just hoard it for next time, right? Let's take a look at impulse detectors real quick. We need how many impulse detectors? 91. Go back over here, and I think we have definitely more than 91 stored up. There's 100 right there, right? And then some to spare. And gear to keypads, I farmed these months ago at this point. We need 94 gear to keypads. Okay, let's throw them all in there. I know a lot of people are going to need this gear. That's why I'm saying don't just throw it in there willy-nilly. I don't need any of that stuff Relic 9 right now. I will need it 3 months from now. But so I can hold on and see how many I get from territory battles, see how much I get from the assault battle, you know, Duel of the Fates, Peridia Patrol, things like that, right? But we have more than enough gear to keypads between all the MK2 that I spent on gear to keypad salvage, right? So 105, we're definitely over our 96 that we need. So basically what that all means is that we're looking at a bunch of relic mats that we don't actually need because we already have, and I'm just sitting on waiting for signal data to come in before I can gear everything up. And I'm still waiting on the characters, right? That's kind of the most important thing, because even if I had the signal data, I can't take the characters up to the relic levels that I need because Brutus isn't even out yet, Captain Silva's not even out yet, etc, etc, etc. But this just shows you how much signal data is kind of lapping all of this gear. All this relic materials, right? When you get to the end game, you're just going to be waiting to be able to refresh Cantina every day. And this relic mats are just going to come in naturally. You're not going to worry about it at all, really. Like, you'll do your conversions, you'll buy your gear and stuff. But when you get to a certain point, you're never going to be waiting on gear or relic mats in order to relic up your characters for the next event. You're going to be waiting here. Signal data is the one true bottleneck. Everybody in the game experiences it. Everybody needs relic levels. Every relic level except one needs signal data, right? So this is just going to be how it is until there's another source of signal data. I don't know if CG plans on doing that. I don't know when they plan on doing that, if they do. But you know, this is why everybody wants signal data. This is why there's constant complaints about signal data. And in the meantime, all I can tell you is just pay special attention to where you can get signal data and when you can get it. Make sure you farm it, because you're going to need it later, especially when, you know, your relic 1 is no longer a hard thing for you to get because the gear has alleviated. And now your floor for relicking up new characters is relic 3. And then before that, before long, you're going to be the base level that I take new characters up just to relic 5. And then I have some people in my guild where everything is relic 7 and they're just, you know, everything that comes out goes to relic 7 immediately. And some people say relic 9 to all tanks. If a tank comes out, it goes to relic 9 immediately. They have the game slightly in a different mode, right? They might be wailing on a lot of things. But at the end of the day, we're all going to need signal data. So make sure you pay special attention to it and don't sleep on it. Don't sacrifice your crystals for other things. Make sure that you're doing cantina farms daily. Those 300 crystals are imperative. It's your best deal to make sure that you don't bottleneck yourself. Okay? Hope this video was helpful. If you got some value out of this, if you understand it a little better, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button for more guides and breakdowns like this, and hit the notification bell so you know when they all go live. Have a good rest of your weekend, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Have a good night.